Good morning, everybody. I'm Phyllis. I'll be facilitating today. And I'll start by just saying the slogan, Erace is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways to, through person-to-person communication, to show that we treat all people of all colors with love and respect. And everyone here, sorry, Louise? Yes, yes, land acknowledgement, please. Thank you.
I want to acknowledge that what we know as the US is the traditional territory of the indigenous peoples. Members of our group today are on the Tonkoan, Lipan Apache, and Comanche in Austin, the Chitimacha in New Orleans, the Creeks and Cherokees in Atlanta, the Nap and Piscataway in Maryland, and the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples in Boston. I want to thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands through the generations and hope that we can continue this stewardship in the future.
Thank you. So I think everybody here knows I'll be keeping a list of who wants to, can you hear me okay? Of who wants to get on the list to speak. If you want to raise up one finger and move it so there's movement in your little square of your face and I'll see it. And then if somebody is speaking and you want to clarify what they've said, meaning they said a word you didn't catch or didn't understand, you can put up 2 fingers to ask the clarifying question and you'll get to jump in to ask that question as soon as they finish speaking. The clarifying question is not to challenge or rebut what they've said or give your own opinion, but to really simply clarify a point or a word that they have made. Sometime before the end, sometime a little bit after 11, we will do a roundup. Anybody who hasn't spoken will have 2 minutes, and then everyone else will have 1 minute for the wrap up. I said earlier we were going to do our Mother's Day drawing at the end of this, but Marva's having home alarm issues that's preventing her and Greer from getting on. And also Bill and Cindy couldn't be here this morning. So we asked that everybody keep themselves on mute unless they're called on to speak to avoid any background noise being disruptive. Any questions? Okay, did I forget anything? I don't think so. Okay. So I brought this article. It was shared with me by another social worker, and I thought it was interesting. And I don't know if did anybody have trouble accessing it? Because I think that online site let you in like a couple times and then it wanted you to, so I had to like, sorry, Dee Dee, you're muted.
It let you read it once.
Yeah, so I had to.
And then it was trying to sell you the paper.
Right, which I was like, come on, you're Myrtle Beach, don't get excited. Yes.
Phyllis, I could not access it, but I copied the title and put it into Google and it came up under another
oh, good
heading, so I was able to access it that way.
Oh, Marva's coming in. Okay, thank you. I did so I hadn't gone onto the site on my phone, so I opened it up on my phone. I copied it all into an email to myself and then copied it into Word and edited it into paragraphs so I could have it today because I didn't print it when I first looked at it. So anyway, this other social worker told me about this, and it was interesting for the you know, the sort of issues around colorism and, you know, and I don't know if anybody saw the picture of the woman. Everybody saw what she looks like. Okay. So I also captured that so I could show it if people couldn't get in. And I just thought, you know, also in a social service agency, it was sort of sad that this is going on, where people are supposed to have cultural competency and hopefully, and cultural humility, and hopefully be able to be beyond these sort of issues. So with that, I will I will ask you all to introduce yourselves and I will call on you. And so you can say who you are, where you are, and how long you've been attending Erace. So I'll start with Dee Dee.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee and I'm in California, and I enjoy coming to Erace and sharing different opinions and just enjoying a little time with folks that don't live in the same area that I do. And so I really appreciate this meeting.
Thank you. Marion.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marion, and I'm sitting in my comfortable red chair in New Orleans. I've been participating in these discussions since June of 1993, and I'm looking forward to this discussion this morning, and I'm very glad to see everyone. Hope I know we're going to have a very lively discussion.
Thank you. Nancy.
Good morning, I'm Nancy Moore. I'm here in New Orleans, and I've been attending Erace since June of 2007.
Thank you. Louise.
Marion, I too am sitting in my comfy red chair. I have been a member of Erace for over 2 decades. First in New Orleans, now I am in Austin. And Dee Dee, if you put where you are from in California, I can add you to that area, to the land acknowledgement.
Oh, I'm in Riverside County.
Okay. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Louise. Beatrice.
Hi, I'm Beatrice here in East Point, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. It's kind of like Metairie in New Orleans, adjacent. And I've been coming to Erace since 1993 when I lived in New Orleans, my hometown, and then moved to up here after the levees broke in Katrina and started Atlanta Erace. Delighted to be here, glad to see everyone, especially my Erace friends from Atlanta, Fred and Jane and Dee Dee.
Thank you. Nora.
Sorry about that. I'm Nora. I'm in Austin. I've been coming probably under a year. And I'm just for a heads up, I'm probably going to skip out about shortly before 11.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I'm Michelle, and I'm in Austin as well. And I've been coming to Erace since the summer of 2020, when Louise introduced me to the group. And we are trying to start a group here in person, partially in Austin. So good morning to everybody.
Morning. Joe.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Joe. I'm here in Austin, Texas, and I've just been coming to these meetings for a couple of months now. Really enjoy the insightful articles and the robust discussions. So I too, unfortunately, I'm going to have to only have about 30 minutes this morning, but every minute is important. And thank you all for your lively participation.
Thank you, Joe. Pedro.
Yeah, I've also been coming since the summer of 2020 with Michelle, and I'm just outside of Austin. And actually, I have a deadline every Saturday, so sometimes it's a work deadline type of thing. So sometimes I don't make the meetings, but I really miss them when I do. And it's good to be back. So thank you.
Glad to have you back. Marva, glad to see you.
I'm Marva, and been attending Erace post Katrina. I live in the New Orleans area.
Are we gonna do the drawing at the end of this, or you wanna wait till like,
I'm going to try.
okay, okay. You let me know.
My assistant Greer is dealing with a migraine headache
Oh, okay.
for listening at alarms going off for 3 hours.
Yeah, I hear that. Okay. Fred,
Okay, we got it. Good morning, I'm Fred Wallace, and this is my first time attending the meeting in New Orleans. I am a member of the Erace group, which be acknowledged, which you call me Jane, but that's okay. B. But I have been attending the Atlanta Erace for several years, and I attend the meetings because I enjoy the exchange of ideas and comments from other individuals, and I learn every meeting. I learn something new. So I'm glad to be here.
well, welcome. I hope we don't disappoint.
I'm sure
Larry?
you won't.
Oh, thank you.
I'm Larry. I started attending Erace back in the mid-90s, and I'm glad to be here this morning, but I'm going to have to leave out shortly. But good to be here.
Okay, thank you. Amal? Amal, are you there?
I'm here.
Gotcha.
Hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. Yeah. I'm all been coming meetings whew, since I was 18 years old, 19, and been coming, kept coming, enjoy the conversations, teach a lot. That's why I'm here.
Welcome back. Okay, so I said about why I brought the articles. Anybody would like to get on the list? Nancy? Anybody else?
Okay.
Beatrice? Yeah, go ahead, Nancy, you can start.
Okay, well, I would start off with, I read the article, but I'm not really sure. And maybe you can explain to me. I was having a hard time understanding, maybe that's why people aren't raising their hand. What exactly was her complaint about? She was not multicultural enough, and she was paid less than her new co-worker, so she filed a complaint of racial discrimination. And then also she faced accusations of bullying. Was she being bullied, or was she doing the bullying?
She faced the accusations of bullying, but they were investigated and nothing was found that she
She
had
was
done.
the one bullying.
She was the one accused of bullying.
Of bullying people.
And
Okay.
was the whole situation was investigated and found to not be true. There was no evidence. The other person, who I think her first name is Angel, she accused the same person of bullying, but she is that person's supervisor. And the Erica also was denied being like the person in charge of diversity, equity, and inclusion because she wasn't multicultural enough, although she's 3 different cultures, and because the person told her she looked too white. And that is her complaint. And the person who got the position has less experience than she does and is getting paid more. Well, was, because this Erica doesn't work there anymore. And I just used your whole 2 minutes to explain that.
That's fine. I needed to be clear about what
Okay.
what exactly.
Okay. And it's a counseling organization. They're counseling people. So.
Okay, thank you.
Next, I have Beatrice. Is there anybody else wanted to get on the list?
Amal.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I have just a couple of comments. One of them has to do with the fact that I worked in personnel, which is what it was called, not HR, at Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland. And my concern is how people know about other people's salaries and qualifications and all of that. Now, I know there's the internet. I know people can look up stuff and look up people's resumes and all that. I don't know that. But it's really not, how shall I say? I'm not sure that I, as a staffing person, would ever have told somebody, this person was hired because you were not multicultural enough, or that, you know, that would have been office information that everybody knew. That, to me, that's an issue. The other issue in terms of personnel, the article implies that before the new person came online, she had listened to comments about, unless I'm missing something, about the other, before she had met the person in question, Pomerantz, she had listened to issues about her and how she had treated other people. I would never have heard any of that. I mean, this is a counseling agency, and there's some underlying skills, it would seem to me, that one would have, so that one would not be privy to any information about someone you had never met that worked in the organization. Other question is, how did this woman identify Pomerantz as, you know, if she were signing, I know that's a loaded question in terms of census because you don't have that many choices, but does she identify as white? Not that it should or shouldn't matter, but how does she identify?
Well, it says, sorry, it says she's Asian, Latina, and
Yeah,
Jamaican.
I know all of, I know they listed all Jamaican and all that stuff, but in terms of, if you know, I don't have to tell people that I'm an African American, but I'm just wondering, because it is questionable in terms of her appearance, does she identify as something other than white? And I would imagine not, I could be completely wrong. And finally, and I just lost it, which is good because the time's up, but I'll come back later.
You want me to put you back on
Yes,
after
please.
Amal? Okay. Okay, Amal, anybody else? Go ahead, Amal.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can.
You know, the title is interesting because it says she looks too white, but I saw if that was her in the article, she looks very Asian. She doesn't look white at all. I'm not quite sure what the people who accused her of being too white saw her, because all I saw was an Asian woman. I didn't. Yeah, she said that she was Asian, Latina, Jamaican. The Latina and Jamaican part doesn't really tell me much, but the Asian part tells me she looks. And so I'm not quite sure who she was working with or around saw when they saw her, but definitely looking at her, I would say Asian. I would definitely not say white under no circumstance. Whoever made that comment to her, I want to know what they were looking at. That's basically what I'm trying to get at, because what I saw was an Asian woman. If the picture that was provided in the article is her and how she looks, all I see is Asian. I don't see nothing else. So yeah, that's quite interesting that she's too white looking. I didn't see white in her at all.
Thank you. Beatrice, you're back up.
Okay, a couple of other things. Thank you, I was pleased to see that South Carolina does indeed have an affirmative action policy. And I hope that stays in force. The other thing is that the issue with the suit seems to have been scheduling and office procedures more than the hiring itself, as well as, I'm looking at the article, a hostile work environment that Pomerantz was supposed to have been subjected to after complaining about the hire. The whole thing seems to be that this work environment, if indeed it's a counseling service, needs work in terms of the environment of the office, if what this woman experienced is so. And that's a concern. I mean, what kind of counseling are they, if indeed this is how this woman felt after having complained about something that I'm not sure she even needed to have known. Because for her to feel that the woman had less qualifications, but she was more multicultural and more enlightened, she didn't need to know that. And that might, if that is an essential part of the qualifications for being hired, then the educational qualifications may not have been as important. I mean, there's a whole lot, to me, there's just a whole lot in this that has to do with procedure and how things should have been managed. And certainly the cultural setting of a counseling business. I mean, that's kind of disappointing. But looking at her, I'm thinking about what Amal is saying. It's hard to tell who people are. That's why I would be interested in knowing how she identifies herself. I mean, she goes around telling people I'm Jamaican. I don't see nothing about Jamaican. Anyway, that I've gone off making intelligent statements and acting crazy. But it was an interesting. Hey, Jean, I thought you weren't going to be here. It's a very interesting article, and go back to affirmative action. Wonderful, South Carolina. I'm glad underrepresented, marginalized people you are intentionally looking for and hiring, and people don't need to know you're doing that. That's not their business. Like Jesse Jackson used to say, when 0 was the quota, that was fine. No Blacks, no Hispanics, no this. And then when people start talking about quotas, now it becomes a problem. So that's all. Thank you. I'm finished.
Thank you. The list is open. Anybody? Larry? Amal, is your hand still up? On purpose? Sorry, go ahead, Larry.
On page 3, it says that Pomerantz complained that specifically seeking a multicultural employee was racial discrimination. And, you know, not privy to all of her thoughts and feelings, but that's going to be a problem with the United States, you know, being the nation that it is. Ukrainians are coming over now, many speaking English. Haitians are coming up speaking English. Mexicans, Hondurans are coming up speaking English. Africans are coming over speaking English. And it's going to stand to reason that an employer is going to need people who not so much as multicultural, but is able to communicate with customers in their own language. So, you know, it's going to be a problem, I think. And if we're not prepared, when I say we, specifically those in the African-American communities, if we don't prepare to learn a second language, you know, we're going to be hollering discrimination when it's not really discrimination. It's just that the employer is seeking people who can meet the needs of their customers. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you. The list is open. Oh, Nancy and Marion. Go
I
ahead.
think that Larry raises a very good point about the mixing of America and who is qualified to do what. In this country, a lot of people complain about the country becoming more multilingual. Okay. and that people should learn to speak English. And I think I brought this article to Erace about the United States has no official language. By default, it's English, but there is no official language. So when people get all riled up about, oh, well, they come over here and they need to learn to speak English. The first thing in the United States, if that's what they want, they need to have an official language. But I think the United States, in and of itself, is lazy. And the schools don't require, they don't, I'm not gonna say force, I would say require students to be proficient in another language, because you can't go all over the world expecting, I mean, most people do speak English, but you go a lot of places and they don't. I lived in Puerto Rico for 3 years. Most up in the more urban areas of Puerto Rico, like on the north side of the island, like where San Juan is, and the tourist areas, they do speak English. But if you go out in the country, in the central part of Puerto Rico and the south side of the island, they don't. So if you couldn't understand Spanish or kind of halfway, I kind of learned to what I call eavesdrop. Okay, I might not get the whole conversation, but I kind of could get the gist of what was going on. You're gonna be in trouble, really. So I think the United States, instead of thinking that everyone should adjust to them, they need to open and expand their minds and start realizing as the world becomes smaller through globalization, that we need to expand our skills, and expand our horizons. That's it.
Thank you very much. Next is Marianne, then I've got Larry and Louise.
Following that train of thought that Nancy just presented, I think I shared with you all in the introductory remarks some time ago that I am a participant, and I'm also one of the tutors in the Spanish language ministry at my church. And I was flipping through the notebook. There's 16 people that come to the class every Monday and Tuesday. We're doing it on Zoom now. And we're all older people. Everybody's over 50. And the mission statement says that we are learning Spanish so that we can reach out to other people and bring them into the fold. The United States does have this rather egotistical attitude that everybody should learn English. And I agree to some extent with that, but I don't think it ought to be forget every other language on earth and just concentrate on English. And people that come to this country from other countries do learn English. Not only do we have the Spanish classes, we have English as a second language. And I was told by the literacy person at our church that there's a whole bunch of people waiting on me to get my act together so that they can come to the English classes. So I think it's rather unfair to smear everybody with that tar brush saying, well, these people don't want to learn English and they ought to learn English. And when they come to this country, they ought to learn English. And they are trying. So we have to be fair before we tar everybody with the tar brush and say they don't want to learn English and they need to learn English. They're people that come to this country specifically for a better way of life, and they know that English is the predominating language, so they do try to learn English. So in all fairness, I think we ought to give these people a break and saying they need to learn English, because they are actually trying to learn English. And
Thank you.
English is hard, y'all. It is.
It is
It's,
hard.
it's a hard language. I'm telling you.
Thank you, Marion. Next, I have Larry, Louise, and then Amal.
I'm not sure if the problem is so much as requiring people to learn English. I think them knowing that they're coming to America, they desire to learn English. They're coming over speaking English. And so they're going to be better prepared to accept jobs that requires dual language. I mean, when I was in high school in 63, 64, 65, you know, it was almost required that you take either Spanish or French, you know, but then this Black awareness moved in the 60s, and some people began to rebel against that and say, why can't we learn Swahili? Well, come on, give me a break. Swahili didn't get us nowhere, and Swahili is not going to serve us in America. And so, but again, it's going to go back to it not being so much as discriminatory, but I think employers are just going to require people to have dual speaking abilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Louise?
So sticking on the language thing, I'm from England, obviously, and England is like a speck in the map of the world, right? It's teeny, and yet English is spoken everywhere. And I've traveled the world, and I didn't have to learn any of the languages that I traveled into. They all spoke English, some of them amazingly well, like the Dutch. I mean, their English is better than ours. I mean, they're amazing. But also far, you know, Thailand, wherever, you don't have to learn their language, which is a shame, you know. I mean, we tried a little bit just to do the greetings, whatever, but, you know, to be honest, you really don't have to, because England prevails all over the world. As far as people coming to America, yes, I'm sure they learn what they want to learn and to get by. If they don't, you know, so what? It is becoming a multi-linguistic place anyway, right? I mean, there are, and as far as schools go, when I was at from middle school age upwards in England, we're either taught, or were in the 70s, 80s, French or German. And I was put in the class for the French speaking. And yeah, you know, I only know a few things. It stuck with me now. I don't use it. I never did use it, really. But I do believe we should teach Spanish in our American schools. I think that would be a very useful language. I think everyone should learn another language just because it's really good for your brain. But anyway, I'm rambling. That was it.
Thank you, Louise. Amal? And the list is open after Amal.
Yeah, one of the other interesting things about the article, and I'm not quite sure if I was quite confused by it, but the lady mentioned, I wasn't sure if she felt discriminated against because it says that it made it out like it was a racial thing rather than a cultural thing, because in the article it says that it was cultural discrimination versus racial discrimination. And I think some kind of way those two things got clumped up to mean the same thing. Is she not multicultural enough, or is she not multiracial enough? Because race and culture are not the same thing, and you can be one race in many cultures, or you could be many cultures in one race. So I'm not quite sure exactly what her argument was in the context of the article, but nevertheless, once again, whatever she's claiming to be, when I look at her, I see Asian and not white. I'm just really, really puzzled by who told her she was too white looking. And I want to meet this person because I don't know what they were looking at when they saw her. Asian is written all on her face. Now, whatever else she might claim to be, that's fine. That's I can't tell nobody what they are and what they are not. But if I saw her walking down the street and somebody told me to describe her based on whatever, I would say she's Asian, and that would be it. So I'm just really not fully understanding what the is it that she's not multiracial, or she's not multicultural enough for the job.
Phyllis, did you see Jean and Fred?
I did not. I thought I saw Jean, but it was a flash on my screen. I've got Dee Dee, then I'll do Jean and Fred. And
Thank you.
I'm getting a work text, so I'm going to try to like pay attention to what this person's trying to ask me. So go ahead, Dee Dee. Go ahead, Dee Dee.
Okay.
Where'd she go? Dee Dee, we can't hear you. I heard the sigh.
I think she got kicked out.
Oh.
I can't see her.
Yeah, she might be switching. Dee Dee, I'm going to move on to the next person and wait till you get it sorted out. So Jean, go ahead.
Yes, I'm the woman who went to the meeting that's being held today.
There.
So I had to have my son come and pick me up. So here I am talking about multilingual. In high school in the 50s, we were required to study a language, and I studied French. And then I've studied Italian, Vietnamese when I was living in Vietnam, in Saigon. I always believed that when I was in another country, that I should try my best to speak the language. And then the only language that I ever had any proficiency is Russian. And that is not a very useful language anywhere. And today it would be frowned upon. I agree with Amal with respect to, I looked at the picture and I actually didn't have a chance to read the whole article because then I had to pay for it and I didn't. And I didn't think she looked white. I thought she definitely was reflective of her multiracial background. I don't know that I would specifically say Asian, but I just looked at her and I thought, no, she's not white. And I think that if I saw her or ran into her, I would feel the same way. But I don't know. It just, if you're too light, then you're too dark. I mean, it just, why can't we just all get it together? Okay.
Thank you, Jean. I got you, Michelle. Let's see, Dee Dee, back online. Dee Dee, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
I think so.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can. You're breaking up a little
Nope.
bit. Can you hear me?
Okay. Okay. I'm on my iPad because I couldn't get the computer to come up right.
Okay.
And so if I have to switch over to my phone, I can.
Yeah. I think
And so because you guys are all frozen on here.
your phone was working better than your iPad is.
Okay.
Okay.
Then drop me down on the list and I'll
Okay.
switch over to my phone.
Okay. Next is Fred. Don't we love technology? Fred, go ahead.
Okay. Let me begin by saying that I agree to some extent on what Amal was saying about Amal. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, about the article being less about language as it is about race. And I think that the whole crux of the article of her complaint is a complaint about perception, how she is perceived. And I think all of us, if we think about it, and we can understand that light-skinned Black people particularly light-skinned Black women, have a hard time trying to determine where they fit into the culture. When I say the culture, I'm talking about whether it's the white culture, the Black culture, or whatever. Because they are not readily accepted as a white person because they are too Black. They are not readily accepted as a Black person because they are too white. And if there's Asian involved, then that just introduces another problem. So this is what this woman was facing. And I think she was facing that more than anything else. When they say they're looking for a multicultural person, who is more multicultural than she is? But it all depends on how she presents. And that is something that B was talking about as well. Does she present as Black or does she present as white? But in any case, what she is multicultural. So that is the crux of the complaint. And I think that the individuals that were creating a problem for her was creating the problem specifically because of that. And that those are my comments.
Thank you very much, Fred. Okay, next, Dee Dee, would you like to go take your turn? Then I've got Michelle.
There we go.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
much better.
Much better. Okay. This is, remember when I said at the beginning of the meeting, I like to hear opinions from different regions in the country. Well, in California, language diversity is mandatory. Okay. I mean, our ballots are printed in 20 different languages, I think. And we all learned a language from junior high school all the way up. Well, they've started it in grammar school now. And there's really a push for inclusivity in California. And they don't want a single child coming to school that doesn't speak English to feel left out. And so it starts at a very, very early age. Back in my working days when I was a funeral director, once I had a secretary who was on the other end of the spectrum who said, you're in the United States now, you need to speak English. And when folks would call the funeral home that I worked in, she would hang up on them if they didn't speak English. And I thought to myself, you know, these people have a need. We took an oath to serve them. Hanging up on them is not what we signed on for. And so she and I had a running battle for about 6 months because I went to night school. I had taken Spanish in high school, but I wasn't very good at it. And so I went to the local junior college out here, and I went to night school 2 nights a week to learn Spanish. So when folks called up to the mortuary because they had a death and they needed to be taken care of, they didn't get hung up on. And I got to the point of, I'm almost done. I got to the point where I could direct a funeral in Spanish. And that for me was so exciting, is I could speak another language, be understood, and move forward and take care of their needs. And so I'm not one of those that you're in America now, speak English, because English is one of the worst languages to learn. And we take it for granted. But those folks don't. I'm done.
Thank you, Dee Dee. Congratulations for doing that. Next I have Michelle, and then the list is open. Jean, is that a finger? One finger, okay. Jean. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, I mean, I think when Fred was talking is kind of what I was gonna say too is just I guess talking so much about this woman's appearance. I mean, I remember when I read the article and I saw her picture, I kind of thought she was white, yeah. But then I was like looking at her face, and I was like, but she's definitely got. I can see where she's talking about being Asian, you know, and other cultural, I guess, elements of her face. I mean, I definitely could see that. But I mean, if I was walking down the street and I passed her, I think my first impression would be she's white. But yes, I think the point being here is that we, as a whole world, are changing rapidly with all the melding of all these different ethnicities and races, and we're eventually going to get to the point, way beyond all of our lifetimes, where you're not going to be able to distinguish all these different things any longer. And so it's like it's like my attitude on a lot of things. I'm like, just get over it. I'm like, let's assimilate and let's figure this out. And it's what difference does it make, really and truly? We're all humans, and I get to that point. I get my frustrations. It's just like, why can't we all finally think about ourselves as human beings, first and foremost? And if it's important to you as a person to identify in a certain way, ethnically, racially, then that's your personal choice. That's fine. But as a perception of each other in this world, just first and foremost, think all of us together as one race, as humans. It's funny. It My mother was talking about watching a show on PBS a few nights ago about consciousness, and how we really don't know about a lot of the consciousness elements of things beyond humanity. So in other words, plants and trees and animals. And it begs the question, like, if there is consciousness on a different level that we don't understand about other things on this earth besides humans, what do they think of each other? And to what degree does that influence how they live and grow in this world? And so it's a strange question, I know, but I'm just bringing it up because as human beings, we seem to be, we think of ourselves as the most well-developed, thinking sentient beings on this earth, and yet we have an issue with ourselves relating to each other as human beings on this planet. And so I just, again, I agree with a lot of what's been said here, but as far as identifying ourselves, it's just still, to me, is just incomprehensible on many levels, that we can't get over this. So that's my rant. Sorry.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, we have Jean, and the list is open after Jean.
I will just say that of all the languages, English is the worst. I did for years help to run conversation clubs. Our libraries have conversation clubs, and it's just a place for people to practice their language. On the other hand, we do end up, talking about the structures, and in
Fred.
some ways. Huh?
Just talking to Fred.
Oh.
Sorry.
Anyway, so yeah, so a lot of people are really trying. We're very multiracial and multicultural in the area that I live in, so you hear different languages all the time. But I just second what everybody else says. I really like Jane Elliott, who's the white woman, who's, she says, we're all related because we all came out of Africa. And so no matter what you say, I'm your cousin. And she's just great. She also is the one who did the brown eye and blue eye in the classroom with the children. And one day you'd be brown eyed, one day you'd be blue eyed, and then they would see how it was to be discriminated against, because there would be the group that'd be discriminated against, and then the others that were the dominant. If we just all gave it all up and followed Jane, we're all cousins. It would be a wonderful, much more wonderful place. And if we were more tolerant about people who speak another language, it'd be a more wonderful place. And it just goes along with the white supremacy in terms of the English, at least in this country, and probably other places like the UK. All right, I'm sorry.
No, you
Great
kept-
day.
you didn't even go over time. Thank you. Fred, I saw you. Anybody else want to get on the list? Louise? Anybody else? Okay, go ahead, Fred.
Yes, I want to continue along the line that I was speaking on before, as far as what is the crux of the problem. And I think that we can say for certain that part of the problem is the hiring manager. The hiring manager does not know what he or she is looking for. Because as I said before, if she is looking for, or if the hiring manager is looking for a multicultural person, who's more multicultural than this young lady?
Yeah.
But beyond that, the problems that and I wish I could remember her name, the woman who is the principal in the case. The basic problem is one of how she presents herself. If she presents as African American, as she presents as Black, if she presents as Hispanic or as Asian, that is what is most important here. And I say it's important because the job that she is going to perform really has to do with culture. And she has got to be able to work effectively with many different cultures, primarily Black people, white people, and Asian people. So that's why I think that she is fully capable of doing that. And the school, the hiring officials of the school are the ones who are creating the problem or who have created the problem. And I think that she is justified in saying, no, this is wrong, and I will not put up with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. I've got Louise and I've got you, Amal. Anybody else? Jean? Okay, go ahead, Louise.
To break off at a tangent that Michelle touched on, which was really deep. I love that. Yes, we've got a lot to learn from plants, and for sure. My thought is the way they communicate through the roots. They can tell each other, certain things about whatever, and they don't care. It's not like, I'm going to pass you this information, even though I'm an oak and you're a cypress tree. I mean, they don't mind about that. They're that's a whole nother thing. Anyway, the English language is, and I'm an educator, I teach kids in elementary school how to read and write. And I swear it's normally about twice or three times a day that I'm saying, I'm so sorry, the English language doesn't make sense. I always apologize because it's ridiculous. You're trying to teach them a certain rule here, and then it doesn't make sense for something else. I mean, it's the most ridiculous language to learn. And that experiment, Jean, that you were talking about, I learned that in college when I was doing my education degree, that that experiment was amazing, and how much self-confidence and self-esteem, like, it literally changes your academic prowess. It's amazing how that really does affect you. So yeah, very interesting experiment. That was it.
Thank you, Louise. Next, I have Amal.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful when we using the term, the idea of being multicultural. Because if I told you that I was Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, would you see me as multicultural or multiracial? See, these are all Asian peoples, but they're not culturally the same. If I told you I was Jamaican and Haitian, the same, they both Black people, but they're not culturally the same. And I think that's where we missing the mark is that you can be racially the same person, but culturally different. And so if I walked into the building and I come to get the job as a multicultural person, and I'm those 3 different Asian peoples, do I get the job? That's where we have to be careful when we're using terms like multicultural, because people think when they think multicultural, they think in 3 different races in one person. No, you can be racially the same and culturally different. And so we have to quit mixing race and culture and making those 2 things out to be the same, because they're not. As it relates to language, as bastardized a language as English is, it's still the predominant language of the United States. Whether I like that reality or not is not what I'm debating. I'm just simply saying it is the predominant language of the United States. Now, how it became that, we could debate that all day. I'm from New Orleans. There was a time when Creole was the predominant language, but it's not anymore. English is. Very few people still speak Creole in New Orleans. So we have to be able to change with the change and adjust with the times. And people who are not willing to do that, they just get left behind. It's that simple.
Thank you. Jean, and then the list is open.
One thing that we haven't talked about is who is making these judgments at the college. When I looked up the college, it's predominantly white. They have a smattering of African Americans and other racial groups, but I can't remember the percentages. And I'd be curious as to who the racial composition of the people making the decisions with respect to hiring, promoting, etc. That might also influence why she was not picked. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Jean. The list is open. Nancy.
I think Fred and Amal make very good points about how this woman presented herself. Okay, Denzel Washington does it's like a little 3-minute talk about it's not color, it's culture. All right, you can find it on YouTube, where he compares differences between culture. He gives, I forget who the directors were for Goodfellas and Schindler's List. And he compares that each one could have done the other. He said, but the fact of how culture presents itself is a big factor. Your experience, what your culture is. And he uses the example of, he says, the smell that's produced when a hot comb hits your hair on a Sunday morning, that's culture. It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with race to an extent, but this is culture. Not all Black people experience that. Certain Black people experience or have experienced that. And it's more about your culture and what you've grown up. So I can see to an extent, how did this woman present herself? Did she present herself as a white person? Did she talk like a white person? Did she present herself? Did she carry herself? Was her mannerisms like a white person? As opposed to somebody who was Asian, Latino, and Jamaican. Okay, and I can go on further and talk about people being from the Caribbean, because my mother, who
So
was
that's
very,
took
okay.
you 2 minutes, but I want to ask Amal, did you want to ask Nancy a clarifying question? She had a thumbs up.
I was just agreeing with what she was saying.
Gotcha.
But then the
Okay.
story that she was telling about the hot comb hitting the hair, I was just agreeing with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's nobody else on the list. Nancy, do you want to just continue another 2 minutes?
I just wanted to say that, you know, my mother she's deceased now, but was very fair skinned, very fair. She could have passed if she had chose to, but she chose not to. And, but she was from her family background. Her father's family came from Jamaica and her mother's family came from the Bahamas. But to look at her, you would not have known that unless she told you that. You know, she was a graduate of Bennett. And she was, you know, I mean, in learning, Bennett was a finishing school for Black women. So she carried herself pretty much like a white woman, you know. She spoke very well. They taught them how to speak, how to carry themselves. And so it doesn't mean that she wasn't Black. I mean, but, you know, there's a lot that goes into how someone is perceived and what their background is and how they're taught. What they're taught is that how to present themselves, their family, everything. Think about the time that she was raised in the 40s, you know. There's a lot that goes into this. So I think that a lot of it, how this woman looks and how she presented herself, and not meaning that she was trying to be something that she wasn't, that really doesn't have anything to do with it either. It's your environment and how you were raised in your culture that has a lot to do with how people perceive.
Thank you. The list is open. Louise?
Again, a little bit of a tangent, but it reminded me of a story that I might have even told here sometime, but I used to work with the youth, high school kids in New Orleans, outdoor educator. And there was one time when we're sitting around at a down moment and chit-chatting to the girls, and they were talking about a guy, and then they, you know, I was like, oh yeah, you know, whatever his name was, he seems like a nice guy. And I said, why don't you, you know, why aren't you seeing him? She goes, oh no, he's too dark. And I didn't know how to react to that. I just didn't, at the time, I hadn't been in the States for, you know, for that long. And, you know, I just thought that was really weird. I don't think I even said anything after that, but yeah, anyway, it goes back to obviously the light-skinned complexion is always, you know, thought of as more beautiful, and it's changing a little bit. Like, you know, Ebony magazine doesn't have, you know, just the very light skin now, and, you know, I think it's changing a little bit. But anyway, I thought that was a bit of a gobsmack for me. I didn't, you know, that was it.
Thank you. The list is open. If nobody has any other comments, we can go to the roundup. Okay, the only person I have as not having spoken is Pedro. So do you want to take your 2 minutes, Pedro? And is there anybody I missed that did not speak at all? Okay. Marva. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, go ahead, Pedro.
Yeah, I enjoyed listening to the different perspectives. You know, what occurs to me is the concept of affirmative action. And we really haven't talked that much about it as a remedial attempt at the inequality that's created. And it just occurs to me when we talk about structural racism and structural inequality, okay, because it's not just African Americans that are exploited in this culture, but there's increasingly a dissipation of the middle class in America and an increased wealth inequality that occurs. And it just seems that fundamentally the system itself is what needs reckoning. And affirmative action is a very, very positive way to try to make it less abrasive and exploitive to people of color and those of the disenfranchised. But anyhow, those are just my reflections. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you, Pedro. Marva?
I've been listening quietly. Interesting. I thought of my childhood observations, and I lived in mid-city, multicultural environment. Italians, Jews, Africans, Hispanics, what have you. We were truly the gumbo pot. I could watch a very fair complexion woman. If I didn't know her, I would say she was white. And I went to school with her children, and I would be playing outdoors, and she would come home from work in a United cab or yellow cab. And at my time of growing up in elementary school, it was very segregated. So I found out later on she worked in a white law office, and she presented in the neighborhood of being Black, but in the workplace she was white. And that's all in presentation. And outside the neighborhood, she was passing for white. It's many ways to look at that. She wanted to educate her children, and the money was good in the white law firm. And her children did very well. And I went to school with them. They were light-complected Black children. Good article, Phyllis. It's all about the presentation.
Thank you very much. So now we'll do the 1 minute people, and we'll start with Marion.
I would just like to say thank you, Phyllis, for this a very timely, complex article. And I just want to say one thing. I want to thank Michelle for bringing up the fact that we're all human beings. And if we could just treat each other that way. Those of you that have known me a long time know I'm a believer in a higher power. And when that higher power created me, I don't believe he made a mistake. And I don't believe he made a mistake when he created any of us. So thank you for this very, very, very complex topic. And it goes back to what Michelle said. We have to accept each other as human beings. That's all we are. Just plain old flesh and blood human beings.
Thank you. Next, Nancy.
Oh, thank you. Very interesting article. Produced a lot of responses on interesting discussion.
Thank you. Louise.
Not really much else to say. I'm sorry if some of my comments were off topic a little bit, but have a great weekend, y'all.
Thank you. Erace always goes off topic. Fred.
Throughout our conversation this morning, we have intermixed discussions of language, race, and culture as it relates to the complainant in this case. And that just highlights the complexity of the situation that she was facing. And I still say that it is more in how she presents than anything else. But I also say that I think her case is justified. Not that my view is the overriding view here, but I think that she should pursue it. But in any case, I have enjoyed being with you. This is my first time attending this particular meeting, and I enjoyed it, and I will probably attend again. Thanks a lot.
We hope you will. Thank you. Next is Jean.
Yes, this sort of reminds me of, I sat in on a Zoom meeting with a UK group, which is, I can't remember the name of it, but they're doing a survey on terminology. It's an all Black group. And I just happened to run into the website. I registered and attended, and so did a Black man from Columbus, Ohio. And I looked him up and contacted him. We talked about it. And they're dealing with the issue in London, well, the whole of the UK, in terms of how do people want to be called and how do they identify. And started me looking up the census questions. It's just, I don't remember ever filling this out, but it's really amazing, the categories. It's just all too complicated. I agree with Michelle and everyone else. We're one human race.
Thank you, Jean, for all your comments. Michelle?
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add other than just thank you again for another nice conversation to start off the weekend. And thank you, everybody. I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend as well.
Thank you. You too. Dee Dee?
This meeting gives me a jump start for the weekend. And I mean, talking to folks with like views as myself, really gives me the confidence to stand up to situations that I see that shouldn't be happening. And it just gives me a lot of strength and a lot of energy. So thank you.
Thank you. Beatrice?
Where is she?
There we go. Great meeting, great conversation. Sorry there was such a toxic work environment in this counseling office that nobody could work anything out better than to have this woman be required to resign. I mean, I thought that was too much. Why can't we just identify as humans? It's a lovely, deep, inquiring question, because the good things of life, health, education, opportunity, power are distributed to a white supremacist lens. And it would be wonderful if we could, and I hope that at some point, and we probably, as Michelle said, we'll all be gone, can do that. And finally, did Pomerantz, if they had an office potluck, would she bring jerk chicken? I mean, I'm just asking. Never mind. If she's Jamaican, it's just a question. Thanks for the conversation.
Prove it. Prove it. Okay. Thank you. Amal.
Yeah, great article, and I'm okay with the idea and the concept of us identifying as human. But even in my humanity, I have an ethnic and cultural background that I'm not going to give up just for the sake of humanity. I'm comfortable being who and what I am, and it's other people who have the problem with who I am. And so the humanity conversation needs to be had with those people, not with those of us who are comfortable with who and what we are. So, a lion and a tiger are both cats, but I don't think the lion wants to give up being a lion just for the sake of being a cat. So I'm okay with being a lion, and I'm not going to give that up just because the tiger got a problem with me.
That was excellent. Thank you.
Of course it was. Of course it was.
Okay, I just have a few final thoughts to say. I was imagining when somebody was saying, how did this Erica Pomerantz portray or present herself? I was like, how would you, on first meeting, if you were Asian, Jamaican, and Latina, how would you present yourself so all of that was known? Would you bow and say, hola, mom? Like what? Bring the jerk chicken or bring something else? I think that's a hard thing for somebody who is, multicultural and or multiracial to do until people get to know her. I wanted to say to Beatrice, it was your first comment, some places have now income information posted so that everybody knows what everybody else makes to keep things more equitable. So that some places do that now. I don't know if this is one of the places. And I loved when Dee Dee was talking about the 20 different languages that you can get the California ballot in, because I really miss getting that voter guide, which had information on everything that was on the ballot from a nonpartisan perspective, so you could read through it, make a decision. It's almost like they want to have informed voters in California, as opposed to here, where I actually voted today. We have one item on the Orleans Parish ballot, and it's Bill mentioned it last week. It's a millage for education, and I was the first person to show up in my precinct an hour and 15 minutes after the polls opened. So, and it's Jazz Fest Saturday, so who's going to go vote? It's beautiful out there. And one time at work, there was a resident or a fellow who was Asian, and we were in a patient's room. The patient was an African-American guy, and the patient asked the Asian fellow, "What are you?" And I don't even remember what he said. He answered, and I kind of joked and said, "How come you never asked me what I am?" And he said, "Oh, you're German." And I do have some German, but I don't necessarily look at a brown-haired, brown-eyed woman and think she's German, even though I have known Germans who actually look like that. So I thought that was really funny and scarily perceptive that he saw that. Like he pays attention, I guess, to people. I trying to read my own writing. Yeah, I think this for me, the issue was people who are supposed to be mental health professionals having such a hard time supporting each other was kind of disappointing to me. And the person who told me about it knows about this place personally, and so I have information I don't feel comfortable sharing on a video that's going to be posted, but I think it is. I hope they get themselves sorted out. I will say that. Okay, so it looks to me like Marva is going to do the drawing for our Mother's Day basket. If everybody wants to stay on, you should unmute yourself, Marva. Um, and if anybody needs to go, thank you very much. Next week is board meeting and Nancy will be facilitating. Does anybody else have a, what am I trying to say? Announcement for anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say in lieu of Mother's Day, I wanted to wish my mom a happy Mother's Day. Lost her a few years ago, and it's always been interesting to me how all of our birthdays are really the birthdays of our mothers. So anyhow, I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro. Okay, Marva, hit it.
I have my head turned. I'm shuffling them around. Oh,
Can you read it?
Laurel, Washington. I'm gonna call her.
Okay. Is it a relative of yours?
Yes. I sold them over 900 tickets.
Right. I mean, it's a given. What are
She
your-
won the St. Jude Mother's Day basket. My first time was St. Jude Church. I fixed the Mother's Day basket. She won.
Wow, she's got good luck. Well, congratulations.
Praise a whole lot.
Okay, she
Okay.
needs to be eliminated from any other contest. Nothing else. Don't let her go to the casino. Look, nothing else.
He only won one erase raffle.
Oh, okay.
I got a text from my faithful customer. She says, your following always win. I had one exception. One lady bought one ticket and she won. Ron J sold her a ticket on Friday. Leaving out the door, she said, Ron J, you worried me all day. Here's your $2. Fill in my ticket. Fill out my ticket.
Wow.
And
Well,
she,
I won that one time too.
oh,
That's
oh,
right.
you
Did
did
win.
late. The mother was not living when you wanted. You were not a mother. And so you donated the basket
All the mother stuff.
of mother stuff. And I built up on it and so the winner will be posted.
Yeah.
On the following
Facebook.
week.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, when you get a picture of her. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody,
Okay.
for sticking it out to the end and for all your good conversations. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.